Hello and welcome to what may be one of my most anticipated lists thus far. Welcome to Who is Best, or in this case, Which is Best, a show where I, LoCloudAin, take games that give you choices and rate those choices in a tier list. Today we will be finally looking at the jobs of Final Fantasy V. There are 26 jobs in total here, and man do we have a wide range. Now this is a well-established game with millions of fans. Everyone has their own judgments at this point, and I'm not about to change 25 years of solidified opinion. But I can sure as hell try. So let's get started with the tier. There is one undisputed class that deserves the right to be here, and that is the Berserker. This class is about as useful as turning your forward focus on auto drive in the middle of the Autobahn. Even with insane abuses the game's broken features, like retroing magic stat and using the Quake spell, only makes this slightly capable. The low tier. First up in the low tier,
and you better be grateful you were on the tier you won't go for a little bit.
Next up is the Geomancer. Geomancers attack using the terrain around them. If they are surrounded by water, they'll use water attacks. If underground, they'll use earth attacks. The attack is random in its potency and is pretty much useless against bosses. Next is the White Mage. Is a White Mage bad? No, not really. Are they good? No, not really. Let's move on to the Oracle. Luck-based jobs will probably always rate low here. Oracles are a weird magic hybrid of a few other classes that just doesn't work very well. Bards are the awkward cousin at your Christmas party. They're kind of an inside joke for anyone who's played the early Final Fantasies. In the end, there are just too many better classes to ever consider using this one. The final member of the low tier is the Thief. Thieves are a useful class for everything but battle. You'll use this job to net rare items and navigate certain hidden passages, but not for anything else. The lower mid-tier. Because this list is so long, I've broken the mid-tier into two parts. And first up on the lower mid-tier is the Mimic.
Don't you dare call out.
The Mimic is broken and possibly the second best job of the entire game. But it is entirely dependent on another job, which that job is entirely dependent on a bunch of other jobs. So the Mimic is in the lower mid-tier with the exception of when it's in the God tier. Let's move on. Next is the Dancer class. The Dancer class is a reskinned black mage, just random and less effective. But damn if Ferris doesn't look good. The Beastmaster is a pseudo-Pokemon job. Once you get enemies to lower HP, you can catch them, then release them to do some kind of attack. You can also take control of enemies as well. Ultimately, this makes this class only as good as the mobs around it, which aren't that great. Next up is one of Final Fantasy's oldest jobs, the Monk. The Monk is a fairly effective class. It's cheap due to the fact that you don't have to equip weapons. They also have insanely high attack, HP, and the killer move counter. The biggest problem with the Monk is that late game equipment completely outpaces it, even with some of the worst classes. The final job of the low mid-tier is the Necromancer. If you can juggle Drain Touch to heal yourself with your devastating Dark Arts, then this job is actually really useful. Unfortunately, it's harder than it looks, and the ability to not heal is actually pretty crippling in many fights. The upper mid-tier. First up on the upper mid-tier is the Jack of all magics, the Red Mage. This is about as middle ground as a job gets. You can learn magic from all practices, but not everything, as well as equipped weapons and armor that most mages can't. But they never really excel at anything. The Summoner gets 6 summons, each with their own element. This can be useful, but there isn't really a reason to use a Summoner over a Black Mage, seeing as the Black Mage can get multiple versions of each elemental spell, allowing it to be viable through more of the game. And speak of the devil, next is the Black Mage. Like I said, the Black Mage is a full offensive magic caster who learns scaling versions of the 4 elements. This job is as useful as glass cannons get, but its versatility isn't outweighed by its frailty. The Hunter class is a decent long-range melee class that can take the positives of bows while negating the negatives, i.e. accuracy. That wouldn't be amazing, except that the Hunter also has the X-Fight ability, which is very useful for handing out damage. And the final member of the upper mid tier is the Dragoon. The Dragoon is a great early party class that slowly loses its usefulness as time goes on. The jump command is slow and can only be useful in a handful of situations, but the Dragoon armor, as always, is God tier. The top tier. There are a lot of classes in the top tier. As is consistent with most RPGs of the era, Final Fantasy V is a pretty broken game. That being said, we'll find many jobs that are broken on the top tier. Let's start with the Blue Mage. The Blue Mage can learn spells and attacks from enemies with the help of the Beastmaster. This really is the reason the Blue Mage is in the top tier. It's a great class for any playthrough. Next up is the Knight. The Knight is the most basic class of Final Fantasy. High attack combined with strong equipment and bulky HP places this job undisputedly in the top tier. Next is the Cannoneer. The Cannoneer is a harder class to place. The randomness of some attacks make it less consistent of a fighter, but the chemist-like ability to create cannonballs can be used for insane effects. The Mystic Knight takes all the best bits of the Knight class and the Black Mage class and blends them together into a turban-wearing beast. The ability to imbue your weapons with magic makes this job a damage-dealing machine. Speaking of damage-dealing machines, the Gladiator is a pure melee class that can hand out some of the heaviest and earliest damage in the game. This combined with a wide variety of equipment, the ability to do 9,999 damage with Finisher, and attacking from the back row set the Gladiator up for a win. The final member of the top tier is the Time Mage, which is your best support and debuffer in the game. There's a spell for every situation. Learning Meteor towards the end of the game also gives the Time Mage a decent damage dealing attack as well. This is probably a must for any optimal party. The God tier. The God tier has 4 jobs, all of which make up the best and most broken classes in the game. First up is the Ninja. The Ninja class is fast and can potentially destroy every enemy. The definition of glass cannon, this job has low HP and can't take hits, but if you're looking for an all-out dual-wielding offensive class, look no further. Next is the Chemist. The Chemist may very well be the most broken class in the game. The mix and drink abilities must have been severely overlooked at Squaresoft. If you know how to use this class correctly, it is easily the best job to pick. Next is the Samurai. This class is God tier only if equipped with Masamune and its high crit and first strike ability. The Samurai is the mob clear of mob clears when it comes to the slash ability. The final job on the list and the top of the God tier is Freelancer, or the Bear class. Yes, the job you start with is the best in the end. Why do you ask? Well, it can eventually become a hybrid of all the classes with the ability to equip all endgame equipment and negate negative effects of most abilities. This takes time, patience, and, well, a lot of time. But if you master every class this guy, along with the Mimic class, break the game completely. And that's my list. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll be honest, out of all the Final Fantasies, I've played this one the least. I know it's a fan favorite for many, so let me know in the comments below what you thought of the list. Like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you all later.